So first and foremost, thank you to Madeline and Rick for inviting me to come tonight. I appreciate it. I enjoy these conversations, and I hope you'll find something I have to share tonight to be of value. Secondly, I have the lecture notes already done for you. So I have a PDF that I will send to Madeline that'll have all the key points that I'll bring up tonight, any quotes that are in, whether they be my quotes or others attributed quotes. I'll be able to send those to you. So that way you can just focus. I'm happy if you want to take notes, that's fine. But at the same time, if you want to just listen, rest assured that most of the notes or people that I might speak of will be in that. And then also, just as a special thank you, I have an ebook called Photograph What Makes Your Heart Sing. I'll send you that as well as a little thank you for coming tonight. Excuse me. So with that, I'm just going to make sure I have my water. I think I forgot my water. I'll survive. I'll be good. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Everybody, Madeline, you can see that okay?
I can.
Good.
Thank you.
I've got to move this so that I'm going to move you folks over. I can see a few of you, which is good. So let me just tell you right now that Rick, Jim, John, Madeline, and Scott, you're my audience. Okay. So when I say something funny, you're supposed to laugh. Okay. That would be nice. Or if it's a moment where you go, ooh, or ah, that would be nice too, although you're muted. All righty. So let's get started and see if we can't share some things that'll be of value for you. Okay, so I always like to start this presentation out with why. And I have 4 of these, what I would call motivational, inspirational, and maybe keynote style presentations. And this one comes from my own life and my journey with photography. And that was that I really struggled to believe that I could be creative, because I never saw myself as a creative person until my wife said, hey, you ought to, pursue photography. You've always had an interest in that. And then I saw other people's images and said, there's no way I'll never be able to do that. I'm just not creative. And then I realized that if I started to believe in my capabilities, that maybe I could create. And so that's my hope tonight, is to share that journey of getting to that place and see if some of these thoughts might help you as well. So first and foremost, let's kind of go to a master. So people seem to listen to Ansel, and Ansel said, you bring to the act of photography all the pictures you've seen, the books you've read, the music you've heard, the people you've loved. And I would add to that, because I believe so strongly in this stuff now, to make it even more personal, you bring a year of COVID and the challenges that brought, the depression that may have brought, the loss of a relationship. You bring the loss of a pet or an animal, or the new job, or the great joy of a new romance. That's what Ansel's really talking about, is the more we get in touch with this idea that we bring to the act of photography us, and all of us, whatever that may be, our influences, the lives we've lived, the religions that we're part of, the politics, all those things make up who we are. And I would dare say the vision that we impose on our images. And then if we start to think about that, the creative process really is more than we kind of laughed here a few minutes ago about this idea that, having a good guitar or a good camera doesn't necessarily make you a good photographer or guitar player or musician. And to me, that's what this is about. So, but when either a musician or a photographer starts connecting here with their hearts, that's when I find, when I'm viewing others' work, that they really start to make a difference to me. And so when we start to think about creating from our hearts and not from our heads, I think that's when things change. And then when we start to think about just photographing what makes our heart sing, instead of worrying about all the other things that might be being photographed by others, or all the stresses of the day, or the desire to be liked on Facebook or Instagram, But if we put all that aside and we say, let's photograph what makes our heart sing, I think that's when we start to make work once again that is more meaningful and dare I say more impactful to others. So, I like to photograph the things like this, and just simple scenes. I like to photograph my grandchildren now because I have two living with me. And, I don't consider myself a people photographer, but when I follow my own advice to photograph what makes my heart sing, oh my gosh. I mean, these two young ladies that live with me make my heart sing. And so I'm kind of forced to become a people photographer. And so much so that a friend invited me to go to the gym in Philadelphia, personal at a boxing ring, and I fell in love with these very different outside of my comfort zone moments. But I also like photographing beautiful flowers. And you know what, I'm gonna pause just for a second here because I realize, whoops, but the problem always is, okay, good. I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare again. I'll tell you why here in a second, because I didn't share properly. I'm gonna do it this time and do it right. There's supposed to be a box, there we go. Because I have some sound coming up here and I wanted to make sure you heard the sound properly. So this, okay, back on track now. So this is a building, it's a Henry Mercer museum. It's literally about 1.5 miles from my house. He built an arts and crafts home that he lived in up until, I believe, if I remember right, the early 70s. Never married. He was a philanthropist. He was a lawyer, never practiced a day of law in his life. It's a very interesting property in an arts and crafts style building. And I waited 3 years to get it's basically taken on November 4th, whatever it was, 3, 4, or 5 years ago. About this time of the year, but to get the frost on the lawn and all those things, I mean, this certainly makes my heart sing. And, my nickname sometimes is Skyman because I like skies so much. And when you're out in the Palouse, which is an absolutely beautiful area that I'm sure many of your group are familiar with, and then you add that incredible sky, it adds so much to the scene. But I like simplicity. Again, we're talking about photographing what makes your heart sing. These are the things where I might be able to put words, a haiku or something up there. I don't know if anybody, I'm going to look at the audience there, the few of you that I can see, but I don't know if anybody knows who that is, but that's the legendary Maynard Ferguson. And when I was in high school, Maynard was my hero, and I'm a trumpet player, I'm a tuba player, baritone horn player, and a guitar player, an ukulele. I loved music, and Maynard was my hero as a child, growing up and playing all those years. And so I got a chance to go photograph him in 2005, actually this time of the year again, November of 2005, a number of years ago. And I made this image and a number of other images that night. I was the only one there photographing Maynard. I had a monopod, and it was my very first digital DSLR camera. And I made these images, and I'd had that camera for 2 weeks, and I didn't even know how to process a RAW file. I cranked the ISO way up because I was inside. I didn't know what that would do. And of course, they were really noisy because this was let me see, it was a Canon EOS 1DN. I mean, this is an old 8 megapixel digital camera. It was $4,000 at that time. I remember that clearly. But, I just didn't know what to do with the images. And finally, about 8 months later, I found a course, a clinic, a seminar, if you will, in Philadelphia, and I learned how to process the files, came home, and I started processing these images and saying, hey, you know what? I think I might have something good here. And so finally on August the 23rd of 2006, I decided to post this image up on what was then photo.net. It might still be around, I don't know. But we didn't have Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. And I'm a landscape photographer 100% at that time. I have no idea if this is a good or bad photograph. Once again, let me just remind you, we're kind of talking about photographing what makes your heart sing. I'm the only guy there with a camera in the front row on a monopod because I adore Maynard Ferguson. So on August the 23rd of 2006, I finally post the image and say, hey, is this any good? And the next morning I wake up and what do I hear from the first post that makes a comment? So that's really weird and odd that you posted that of Maynard last night because he died last night. Of course, I was just heartsick that my hero passed away on the same night that I decided to finally post an image. Jeff Lashway, his piano player, joined Photo.net just to say how much he loved this photograph of his dear friend, who's now passed away. And so I had a thought. I said, well, Jeff, let me get your address. Let me send you a copy of this. I'd love you to have it. So I did that. And then I pulled out an album and I said, I wonder if the Ferguson family might like these. And I found that Ed Sargent, the tour manager, got the images to Ed. They loved them, said, thank you very much. 2 months later, I get a phone call from Ed. And he says, John, what you don't know is about 2 weeks before Maynard passed away, he played what are now be the final notes he's ever played on an album. And we wrapped up that album 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks before he passed. He says, we'd love to use your image for the cover. So here I am associated with my childhood hero forever. I mean, my name's in the liner notes as the photographer for the image that the graphic artist, kind of ruined in my mind. But anyways, that's his job. And, but again, how the real question is, as cool as that is, how did that happen? And it happened because I'm following my heart again. And I brought a camera to photograph what makes my heart sing. But when we think about the creativity side of photography, it helps us I think it helps if we start to think outside of the box. And if we start to think about like something like this, where I was out west and I saw these beautiful autumn grasses, and I've never seen color in grass like this being from the East Coast. And so if I just made a photograph of grass, it wouldn't be real expressive of what I was feeling. What I was feeling was an amazement of color. And so if I move my camera over whatever, a fifth of a second, I think it creates a very different feeling and maybe closer to what I was feeling to you. So, multiple exposures where we're just doing small increments of camera movement to get something else, something other than just a straight image. But in order to do these types of techniques, we really need to understand our gear, inside out and backwards, so that we get rid of the worry about how the heck do I do something, and we can respond to the moment. It's kind of like music again that I have this passion for. And when I played tuba in a Dixieland band, I'll call it semi-professionally, I got paid, but we did it, after we all graduated from high school and played at local taps and bars and all that stuff. And so we didn't get paid a lot, but we had a lot of fun playing Dixieland music. And I had the pleasure of playing with Jimmy Fryer, our trombone player, who to this day plays in New York City at the Blue Note, no less. The Blue Note, if you don't know, is like you've gone to the top of the jazz, right? Here's Jimmy. And you're all hearing that okay? Madeline, thumbs up? Yeah, good. So again, the question I like to always ask is, how did Jimmy get that good? Well, unlike me, who practiced the required half hour that my parents made me every night, whether I wanted to or not, Jimmy pretty much slept with his trombone. I mean, he knew his trombone inside out and backwards. And so he was playing from here. He wasn't playing notes because of some formula for music. He was playing what he felt, and it just came out on the trombone. So start to move your camera, see what happens. Move your camera over maybe longer periods of time. Move your camera left and right and start to paint these beautiful painterly images, these one-of-a-kind paintings. That's what photography is. It's painting with light. Why not move our camera like a paintbrush and do that? And get another right answer, right? The only right answer isn't necessarily a tack sharp image. Another right answer might be something that's a bit more expressive. And like we talked about before, just small little increments of multiples give us a very different answer. Or maybe doing what I would call intentional camera movement, where I'm moving my camera for the first 4, and then I'm just moving it staccato like for the next 6. And I'm combining both of those together rather than just doing only intentional camera movement or only multiple exposures. It's this creative zone, if you will, that you can get in where you're really trying to express more of the feeling that you're having. And when you start to understand these concepts, then you can be driving down the road and you can be with your best friend who's your tour partner, and you say, Dan, stop. And he's like, why? It's 12 noon. John, the trees we just drove by are burned. They were burned in a fire, and it's scorching midday sun. There's nothing to photograph. But 4 miles down the road, I finally convinced him to turn around, because I knew that if I used these techniques like multiple exposures, that it didn't matter what the quality of the sun was or what the subject was it's burned. Dare I say, maybe I'm starting to create something that's more of a piece of fine art. I could be at Guanajuato, Mexico, and instead of just shooting all that sea of beautiful colorful houses from up above there, I decided to do an oblique multiple exposure. In this situation, and these are all on film, this set of images here. So I was at this beautiful set of trees, and I just want to show you kind of how the creative process can be. And I moved down, up, and then squiggled on the way down the third time over about, if I remember right, 3 or 4, maybe 5 seconds. And then I said, at the same scene, the very next thought and image I made was this one, where I said, okay, I'm not going to move. I'm going to stay right where I am. And I'm going to do a multiple of whatever I did, 9, or probably something like 9. And then I said, I wonder what would happen if I did a series of 9, and then I did a whole bunch of swipes, and then I put those together. And in film days, this is a slide sandwich at this point. So I'm taking 2 completely different techniques and overlaying them on top of each other and making another right answer. So 3 very different images, right? All from the identical location within about 30 seconds of each other. Another idea is just, do I have to shoot it tack sharp? Can I maybe do something like diffuse glow, where I'm throwing it out of focus a little bit on one of them and keeping it sharp on the other one? Or maybe I like it sharp. The point is, I think you should experiment and do both, especially in digital days where it doesn't cost anything. In film days, I had to pay money to get my film developed, see all my mistakes. But then I would encourage you to experiment with this Orton effect. I mean, I love the Orton effect, and it's that halo that you get around the edge of the flowers. And yes, this was film, but we can do it in digital as well. If we do something like this, if we get the back of a sunflower, and in this case, I'm not at f/22 like the old Orton was, but I'm at f/8 because I want those background sunflowers to be out of focus. But then watch, it's going to grow a little bigger because I'm going to use a long telephoto, like 200, and I'm going to throw it out of focus towards me to make it grow bigger. Boom, there it grew bigger. And then I'm going to take another photograph, take this photograph and put it on top of the first one, and I get that same type of glow around the edge of the sunflower. So we can still do this Orton technique in the digital world. Or maybe we consider a photo montage where when I went to Longwood Gardens one day, it was 8 degrees in the Arboretum. And of course, the Arboretum's all misty, foggy in there, right? Because they're keeping the flowers in a beautiful temperature. And so there's this condensation and it's creating this insanely beautiful frost on the windows. And I'm like in love. So I went there to photograph the flowers and I went, the heck with the flowers, I'm having a party over here. And then I finally realized that if I go home with only frost images, my wife will be very disappointed because she loves my flower photography. So I snapped a few flowers. But when I got home, what really helped tell the story of what I was feeling that day was the combination of the frost as my texture to put in with my flower. Or we can maybe take a color image, convert it to black and white, and then invert that. We don't always do this. I've only done it 4 or 5 times where I actually invert it, but I knew I would get all this negative space so that if I had texture, I could put that in with it. And I made like 25 iterations of this stinking image because it's just so much fun. It's a blast. Or if you're feeling in a creative, rut, a lens baby is great because the original lens baby, or now I guess they call it the Sweet 35 and Sweet 50, what it does is it forces me, the maker of the image, to try to tell you where I want you to go in this image. And I want you to go to that sharp area. And then all that other stuff is this beautiful radial blur holding you in the image. I just want you to go to that foreground flower. Everything else becomes a supporting cast to the main actor. So a lens baby is a great tool to kind of force your eye, help you with your composition. I mean, you can't help it, right? You go right to that driver of that cab, and then all that other fun lens baby stuff is holding your eye in there. And they have soft focus optics. Or they have the Velvet 56, 23, and 85, which are a soft focus lens now that I adore. You can drop in an optic that's a fisheye. And then you can do fisheye HDR. I think you get the idea, right? The creativity part of this, it's open to whatever you think about it, like getting a box of 64 crayons. Remember that feeling? It was great, right? I mean, you had that little sharpener on the side there and you got 64 colors and it was a party. You couldn't wait to play as a kid. That's what you need to be thinking about as a photographer. And then this idea of iPhoneography, I love these 2 quotes, and these things have gotten ridiculously good. I've got the new 13 and it's blowing my mind. And so Duchemin says gear's good, vision is better, and I couldn't agree more. And then Jarvis says, the best camera is the one you have with you. And so here it is. This is the only camera I had with me for this series of 4 or 5 images here. But Lloyd was across the street from the penitentiary that we get to photograph in Philadelphia. And he's at Mugshots, which is the name of the bar, like a coffee shop across the way. And I just asked him if he would take 1 minute as he was bringing stuff from out of the basement outside and into the store. And he posed for 2 seconds, very unobtrusive with this thing. And, what a wonderful capture of Lloyd. Over in San Quirico, Tuscany, and I'm preparing for a workshop group coming in. And I didn't want to bring a real camera because I knew I would get too distracted. And I wanted to get my scouting done and do my job, but I couldn't help it. And at least I had this in my hands and this elderly couple who's walking about a half a mile per day. I mean, they are just barely moving along, but I couldn't resist. At the end of the day, love remains is what I thought of with this wonderful couple. And good old Myra and her mom making a break. Again, the iPhone is what I had at that moment in time. I'm heading down to Philadelphia at the train stop. And I see this glass and I'm like, are you kidding? Seriously? Whip out the iPhone, right? I go to get corn across the street from my last home where we lived. You walk there. And I'm like, man, this looks like a good opportunity to make a photograph. I'm in Tuscany and I've got a real camera with me, but I couldn't resist. I couldn't get an HDR that looked this good. My phone did a better job. So the best camera is the one that you have with you. And if it happens to be something other than your real camera, fear not. And don't let the world know you took it with your iPhone. Doesn't matter. If they love it, they love it. And then think about capturing the essence of things. What do you really need in the frame to tell the story of what it is? Does this look like fall in New England? If you're from New England at all, a paper bark birch, and that's what they do. They start to have this bark that curls. And yes, I stuck the maple leaf in there, but nobody needs to know. A lot of people might know that this is Fern Spring out in Yosemite, and one right answer might be the whole thing, but for me, distilling it down to the essence of that beautiful reflection was it for me. I spent, 4 hours in the plethora of these beautiful ferns in one spring in a couple hours from my house here. And I just love this relationship between these two, totally breaking the rules, by the way. The rule says, it should be odd numbers. And I say, who made the rules and why do you believe them? There's a big difference between two things being static in the frame and two pieces of fern having this interwoven relationship with each other. It's very different. So please don't use the rules to judge what's right or wrong. Use your heart to decide what's right or wrong. This totally works for me, and I hope it does for you. Late light just raking over the dunes, coral pink sand dunes, but I didn't care about the beautiful, sexy, sensuous lines. I couldn't stop looking at this, so I made a photograph. When I go to Longwood Gardens in late March, they always have the African blue poppies there. And, to me, this captures the essence of that experience. Whereas my hey, how you doing shot looked like this. It's like Madeline and I meet for the first time and I know nothing about her. And I pull back and I say, Madeline, may I make a portrait photograph of you? It's probably going to look like this. But if I spend time with Madeline and get to learn about her and where she went to school and does she have children, and if she has children, does she have grandchildren, and what type of photography does she like to do, and we have dinner together, and then I make a photograph. My guess is the photograph's going to look like this, right? So we need to spend time. We just can't think about those first few images anytime you go as, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. That's what's happening. But then when we finally get to know each other, this happens. And then this happens. And we don't need a whole barn to know it's a barn that's falling down. We don't need a whole red boat to know it's a red boat. But at the same time, I don't want you to think that essence has to be distilled down. Essence can be a grand scene in the Palouse in the fall harvest with the harvester kicking up the dust. Essence can be that beautiful, scenic, grand landscape in the Palouse with all the beautiful poppies. But I do think distilling our images is healthy to be thinking about as a guideline. When I take folks to this old abandoned farm in the eastern shore of Maryland, I bring them around, and for the big surprise there, which is this old Studebaker truck. You don't see many Studebaker trucks, and so everybody who's generally seen a presentation of mine, probably has seen this shot. And so what do? They go make this shot, or they stand right in front of the truck with a wide angle lens and do that. And then they're running away. And I'm like, where are you going? You just got here. And they're like, well, but I saw a bicycle. I'm next to, and I'm like, I get it. But do you like this subject? Oh my gosh, John, I haven't seen a Studebaker truck ever. Well, me neither. So why don't you spend another couple of minutes? Remember we talked that you don't have to have the whole truck to make it. Oh yeah, I'll do that. Good. Can I go now? No. I'm like, seriously, you haven't even spent 5 minutes here. And, we got to take some time. And so then I said, why don't you go open the door? And they open the door and they're like, oh, crap. And I'm like, yeah. I said, this is a very different photograph than the other two. This one has a story. And it makes me wonder, who made that? And why would it be left behind? What were their names? And on and on and on, right? So the others are lovely photographs, technically correct, properly exposed, but they're more like snapshots, whereas this becomes, I think, more of an image of interest. And stop worrying about all those. I know you're out photographing with your friends or your club, and you're, oh my gosh, I love this, right? Stop worrying about all their wonderful excitement. The next best image is right where you are. For instance, we're up in Pemaquid, and I'm with a group of 12 others, and I'm the only one drawn to this lighthouse. I mean, everybody else is all the striated rocks. It's beautiful there, right? It's a great, iconic location for photographs. But the color of the sunrise reflecting in that window, it was like a magnet. I just so I get back and I process the image, and I never do this, but I was so overwhelmed with that blue and the beautiful complementary color that I had to go take a look at it. Brought it down to the breakfast table, showed my buddy Paul, and Paul goes, "Oh crap, seriously, I don't have anything that looks like that." And so he runs upstairs and he brings his down. He goes, "This is all I got." And I went, of course, I had the same reaction, right? I went, "Seriously, I don't have anything that looks like that, Paul. I never made it over there." And so the point is, the next best image is right where you are, because you're being taken. And to me, that's the paradigm shift for me that was so important in my photography, is to realize that I need to be open to receiving what's being gifted to me rather than chasing after another good photograph, right? All those labels, all those expectations to me are dangerous. They get in the way of the creative process. Whereas if I can be open to just being taken and trust that I'm being pulled or brought to that lighthouse to make my photograph for a reason. My buddy Bill Strom, bless his heart, who passed away back in 2009, he was an assistant of mine, and he used to mutter a lot when he photographed, and it would drive me nuts, but I loved him nonetheless. But he would mutter this. He would say, what if no one's ever seen this before? How can I share its beauty? He was really always interested in, how do I share, beautiful fall foliage reflections in gently moving water with someone in South Africa who's never been out of the desert? How do you convey that, right? But it's cool to think about that. How would you do it? And then another great exercise is to start picking subjects outside of your comfort zone. Well, I'm a nature photographer, so people, I don't even want to think about doing people photography until I'm forced, right? Or my grandkids. But my buddy Dan says to me, why don't you go for next time you're out here, John, for that medical device trade show that you go to, why don't you go to the Geary Concert Hall in LA and photograph that? And I said, why the heck would I want to do that? I'm a nature photographer. Give me a tree. You got any trees in California? So the second year I go out there, and he says, you're going to go photograph the Disney concert hall? I said, no, I have no interest in photographing the building. Year number 3, Dan says, John, seriously, I know, let me show you some images of the building. So he shows me nothing like this. He just shows me pictures of the outside of the building. Yeah, I said, whatever. And so year 4, I finally said, I know he's going to ask. I just know he's going to ask. So the heck with it. Dan, where is the Disney concert hall? Oh, I'm so glad you asked, John. It's right off of the Highway 101, whatever it is, And so I went, and this is the body of images I made in 3 hours. I had a freaking blast. I mean, and a huge lesson that I learned that day. Why did I not go for 4 years? Why did it take me 5 stinking years to get there? I'll tell you why, because of FUD. What's FUD? Fears, uncertainties, and doubts. What happens when I use a wide angle lens and I point it up? Doesn't it get distorted? John, you're photographing a Geary architecture. it doesn't have any straight lines. I mean, Geary's wacko stuff, right? And so what I learned is I was getting in the way of making photographs here at this building. And now I've been back 4 times to this building. I've been to the Experience Music Project building up in Seattle 3 times. I can't wait to do more of this type of photography. So a huge lesson. When we assign ourselves projects, we tend to learn an awful lot. Bill, my friend I told you about who passed, was a sweater designer. So when we would go to Longwood, he sees only designs. He sees patterns. Not me. I saw flowers or frost. So I went one time and I said, I'm just going to photograph patterns. That's all I'm going to do. And it was really helpful. And then my buddy Dalen says, hey, why don't you come down to the Front Street gym? I have access, because I trained to do, one of his bucket list items, very different than my bucket list, was to win a boxing match. Who thinks that way? Anyway, he's a smart guy too. But so he brought me into this place. The first 2 times I went to photograph here, I didn't have a single person in one of the photographs until Dalen finally came to me and he says, John, I recognize that you're not normally a people photographer. He says, but what are you going to do with images of a gym? I said, it's cool. He says, wouldn't it be even cooler if they was like a story and, maybe I was in the, I said, yeah, but I don't know what to do. So it was incredibly instructive for me to learn about HDR and how do I get those windows. I would process these very differently today. I leave them as they were from 2008 on purpose because I was going through my transformation and learning and evolving as a photographer as to what I really wanted my aesthetic to look like. But at this time, this is what I was using, was some of those tools that I had to manage some light. But it was very instructive and it overcame a whole lot of fears. And of course, it helped to have Dalen, who was a willing model, to help tell the story of a lonely boxer working his way up to fight. So like that Studebaker truck, something that just drives me crazy is people just don't take enough time in the field. They don't take enough time when they finally are called by something to photograph it and receive that gift, if you will. They take 5 minutes and walk away. Not me. I go buy flowers for my wife and I would bring them home and I would put them on the table and she would give me a lovely hug and a kiss. And then I would abscond with the flowers to the front foyer and I would get my diffusing panel out and my macro lens and and I'd have a field day by spending 3 weeks with these flowers, to the point where my wife no longer believes that I buy flowers for her. I don't blame her because generally I absconded with the flowers. So now my wife a few years ago said, I think I'd like to try this photography thing. Well, guess what? Here, I don't think you can see it real well, but that's a Kathy Barclay image and another Kathy Barclay image. So my days of, fooling her are gone. So what about black and white? Well, I love this quote. I wish I could figure out who did it, but with color, we look at the photograph, and with black and white, we look, and I would say, into the soul of the photograph. Because to me, when we strip away color, we're left with the bones. We're left with what was it that I was really trying to capture and convey. So a couple of examples. This is at the MIT Geary building, actually, and I love the pattern here. But is the color adding any value? I don't personally believe so. And a matter of fact, I think when we remove that color, we're left with at least the viewer knowing more distinctly what I was drawn to. This is my youngest daughter, Brittany, and we have a certain reaction to Brittany in color versus black and white. They're 2 completely different feelings that we have. And to me, that's why we need to be mindful of why we're choosing black and white. Is it accomplishing what we want it to? Do we want that? Is it color that we were being called by, or was it shape? And so if it's shape, maybe we remove the color and now we have that beautiful contrast of black and white, and it's just those shapes. And especially when we're looking at those beautiful faces of these wonderful farmers that work down in the fields in San Miguel de Allende, and we invite them to be our models. To me, stripping away the color is important, so that we see the story that's being told on these faces that have lived some difficult lives. I guess what I'm trying to say here, and part of my thoughts tonight, is this idea that cameras don't create images. Camera is just a tool. It's a light box. It's a light box with a computer in it nowadays. But ultimately, it's a light gathering device. So cameras don't create images. You do. See, you're responsible for every square millimeter of your frame. You're equally responsible for what's in it and what's not in it. You're responsible for understanding the techniques that we've spoken about, for being open to the creative processes that we're hinting at. Camera doesn't know how to focus on just an edge of a flower, or to put something in the front of the lens so it gives it the soft ethereal look that I'm moving quickly in front of my lens to get that bud sharp, but get that really soft look. That's me. That's me having to know that. And that's you being responsible for every square millimeter of your frame. So how do we do that? We do that by being a bit more patient. And if it feels redundant, it's on purpose to be patient. You know, again, I'm at Longwood Gardens. They don't like it when you get in the flower beds with the flowers. As a matter of fact, they generally kick you out. And I don't like to be kicked out. And so I'm in a pretzel underneath my tripod trying to get myself to where these beautiful yellow callas are obliquely positioned. But it was worth the 20 minutes it took to come up with this image. See, I think we need to learn to be more present. And how do we do that? Well, by being still, by sometimes trying quieting the mind, if you will. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's so easy to take all of the stresses of our lives and bring them out into that photo shoot. But boy, if we can be still and sit on a rock like this one in the middle of a stream and just think, or try to get rid of everything in that busy mind. And I did that one time, and it was not here. This is in the Smokies, but it was on a very similar scene to this, but it happened to be about 40 feet up a big steep climb. And so I left all my gear at the bottom of that steep climb because as I assessed the area, I went, there's nothing here to photograph. Plus I'm tired. I've been doing this for 3 hours. I don't need any more photographs. I got them done. So I went up there, sat on a rock very similar to this one. And after 20 minutes of just absolutely being enthralled by the sound of all that beautiful water and being in this beautiful place that had no photographs to be made, this happened. I'm surrounded by the music of the gentle flowing stream. It speaks to me with whispers of ages past, and I ponder the stories that have been told to those who have walked along its path. And I'm drawn to the beauty of a tender little fern. Its elegance, its beauty, and its grace. It sits among the lush green moss, rightful heir to this sacred place. And I then remember what brought me here, and I say a prayer of thanks for the journey that has set me free. And as I look to capture the moment, now I see. It took me being still and getting rid of all those expectations, all that stuff, to be able to then scramble down, get my gear, and start making photographs everywhere, because they were everywhere. I just wasn't open and I wasn't present. So be still and start letting those images come to you. See, a photograph is neither taken nor seized by force. A photograph offers itself up. But are you ready? Are you aware and present and grounded? There's gifts being offered every day. We're back at the gym with Dalen, member of the Boxer, and that lesson of learning to add a boxer into the gym images. And that last one, he's sitting in the chair, two beautiful big windows, castigating light. Well, this is his daughter, Marley. And she's tired and bored to tears of me making photographs of her dad. And she's sitting in a huge truck tire that's, an 18-wheeler truck tire that they use to do whatever they do in the gym. And there she is. I've got a 70 to 200 2.8 piece of glass on my lap. I'm paralyzed. Why? I don't know what to do. I'm struggling enough to photograph Dalen. And I know there's beautiful window light and she's beautiful. 10 minutes go by and I'm like, in my brain, I'm having this dance. Well, John, why don't you make a picture of her? Yeah, but John, if you cut her arms off, it's going to look stupid. Yeah, I don't think that you're supposed to do that. And I'm so caught up in what, scared to death. So I finally brought the camera up, went click, looked at the back of and this is what I saw. And I went, that seems good. So I said, let's try another one. Oh my gosh, I'm falling in love. Again, major life lesson for me in photography. I was in the way again. All this self-doubt about what it takes to be a people photographer, rather than just saying, I'm just going to make photographs that make my heart sing. And I'm going to use this tool called my heart to compose these images. And I don't care if I cut her arms off or part of her head off. I'm just going to do what feels right. And then I made a triptych and gave it to Dalen and his wife, which they were grateful for. I have no memory of any photographs I made of Dalen that day. They're unimportant as far as I'm concerned. This was what was really important. So do we need to go to, New Zealand with John and Kathy on our photo tours? Well, yes. I mean, we'd love to take you, but seriously though, you don't need to go. Just go in your own backyards. You folks live in, God's country out there. It's beautiful in Oregon. And you have lots, very proximal to where you live. And so I'm out in my backyard here. These are all images taken within 1.5 miles of my house. Most of them are in my backyard. And then let's start thinking about, hey, can I do something beyond the vibrant color? Can I maybe strip the color out, add a little bit more foggy? Of course you can. It's your photograph. It's your art. Don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't do with your art. And if you need permission from a master, Ansel says photography is more than a medium for factual communication of ideas. It's creative art. If you looked at some of his negatives, when you see his shows, and then you see the positive, the print, it shouldn't be right because he has manipulated it tremendously. And so should you, if that's what you feel you should do. Don't let anybody tell you what you can and can't do. Use the tools available to create your own unique vision, whatever that might be. Again, I'm in my backyard. I just love the way those two foreground trees make this frame for those others, and they go into that fog. And here I am breaking rules again, cutting frames in half. I just love doing that. It's not quite in half. I guess I'm not breaking a rule. I'm back getting corn. I've got my iPhone with me. I'm down cutting the frame pretty close to in half again at the little lake near us. I'm on a bike ride. I run home, get my camera because I can't pass up a good sky. Do the same thing on another day, almost the identical location, different day, and I got the moon. I mean, these are all in my backyard, folks. I mean, you don't have to go far. So what does it take? All these things that we're talking about, what ultimately do we need to do? Well, practice. I mean, the analogy again, music. Hey, Mom, Joey's got a guitar and he's cool. It's really cool. I'd like to play guitar too, Mom. Well, okay, son, we'll get you guitar, but you're going to have to practice. Oh, Mom, I know. I know, no problem. Mom, I promise if you get me that $300 guitar, I will practice for 1 hour every month, whether I need to or not. People, I see some chuckles, right? But isn't that what we do with photography gear? We go spend thousands of dollars and then we go out 4 times a year. How do we expect to get better? And so we do need to practice. And guess what we have? Hello, see this thing? It's called a camera. It happens to make phone calls too, which is kind of cool, but it's a camera. So you have no excuse to be making photographs everywhere you go. And if we circle back to the beginning in Ansel, here's what Haas says about it. Ernst says, the limitations of photography are in yourself, for what we see is only what we are. Here's Haas and Barclay and Adams and DeWitt Jones and whoever else you want to quote, and Freeman Patterson, specifically my dear friend Freeman, all saying the same thing. When you start to understand that what you're seeing is a reflection of you and who you are, and that's what you bring to photography, that's when things are going to change. And now just kind of a few little words of caution. Be careful with those feelings, those pesky little feelings of inadequacy. Kind of like mine, where I said, I don't know what to do with people photography, or I don't know how to photograph a building. Or somebody says, hey, would you photograph a wedding? Well, now I say no, but I did say yes 3 times, but I'll never do that mistake again. I mean, seriously, those feelings of inadequacy, here's the one that I've been, when I was taking all the workshops to learn all this, I'd be in a line of 12 other photographers and they'd be going, oh, that's so good. And I'd be going, what? I didn't get it. I wasn't seeing it. And then I would look through everybody's viewfinder, and then I would go, oh, right. I had to go through that learning curve. So those feelings of inadequacy are real, but you need to learn to meet them with love and tenderness and compassion and just let them pass right through so that they don't take over. And again, this idea, please don't let anybody tell what you can and can't do. I'm at Zabriskie Point in Death Valley one year. I'm 6'6". You can't tell that in this presentation, but if it was live, you would see that I'm rather tall. Next to me was a guy that had to be 5'2". And I'm up there and I'm doing camera movement, intentional camera movement. I'm going like this with my camera. I'm going like this with my camera. And you know how you can sense a person, even though you're not really paying. And finally I looked down at him and he's looking up at me and you could just tell he wanted, and I finally said, what? No, I didn't quite say it like that. I said, yes. And he looks up, he says, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm doing intentional camera movement. I'm having a party. And he literally looked up at me, all 5'2", and he says, well, that's stupid. I swear on the Bible, that's what he said. That's stupid. And of course, my first reaction was, well, that's courage. Well, and my next reaction was, I probably ought not go and hit him on the head and make him 5 foot, because there is a park ranger standing over there. But the next reaction is kind of in my mind, there's 3 human reactions. That first one is wanting to go hit him on the head. Not good. The second one, I think, is real human. Yeah, you're right. Probably stupid. Especially if you're trying something new and it ain't working. Right? That person's going to go, well, that's stupid. And you're going to go, you're right. Done. Not me. I kept going and finally I got this and I said, but look, I'm making a patchwork quilt. Guess what his reaction was? That's so cool. And guess what he did for the next half hour? Couldn't stop bugging me. How do we do that? What settings are you using? So the paradigm shift was completely on him, to where he went from that's dumb to, hey, if I treat it like a box of crayons and just play, I could have fun too. I love this quote from James Cook: do just once what others say you can't. and you'll never pay attention to their limitations again. That's what I'm inviting you. Stop worrying about what the rules are. Think about them as suggestions or just throw them away. I mean, and photograph what makes you feel good and all those things I've been talking about, but don't let other people's limitations. So here I am with other top-notch professionals with the Out of Chicago team getting ready to do the Out of Chicago Longwood Gardens thing a couple of summers ago. It's 104 in August and horribly humid at this moment in time. And rightly so, the group said, I'm out of here. It's awful. And I said, yeah, I'll be with you in a minute. Well, what do you mean in a minute? I said, well, I got something. I see something. I just want to make this photograph. And they said, okay, you're nuts. We're going in to get some air conditioning. And I'm pointing directly into the sun. The sun's behind us, and that is as glary can be. But I knew if I just underexposed, and it took me 3 stops of underexposure to make that even happen, that I could make a pretty strong black and white photograph. I'm not paying attention to their limitations. You know, they said there's nothing there. That was the famous quote. John, there's nothing there, you know? Well, I'll figure it out on my own. My dear friend DeWitt, you know, if you don't follow him on Celebrate What's Right with the World, you should. It's a website that he has, and it's purely just celebrating joy and what's right with the world. He also has a Facebook page you can share your work with the world of Celebrate, which is, I don't know, there's 5,000 or 10,000 people on that page. And here's what he's talking about. He's talking this idea of, you know, I go to this place called Tom's Creek in the Poconos, and I would go there because my buddy Bill that I told you about loved it there. I hated it there. Why did I hate it? Because I never made a good picture there. And so that self-talk again was, I don't want to go because I don't like it there, because I don't make good pictures. So I'm never going to make a good picture. That's my mindset. Whereas Bill is going, he's whistling, driving me nuts, having a party. So I sit in the car while he goes and makes photographs. Well, I got out and I made this very pedestrian photograph, and then I said, I'm done. You know, beautiful conditions to photograph foliage, but I'm done. I just don't like it here. But on the way back, that one branch, and I wish I could get my pointer to work, but I can't. I don't know why that happens. Let's see. Can I? Oops, I didn't mean to do that. That's what always happens. Come on. Kind of ruins the story. Let's go back. So anyways, I'm coming back, and on that branch, I see something, and it makes me want to get my macro lens out and celebrate what's right with the world. And that's what I saw, and that's what I found. So DeWitt is talking about that idea that you can go and be grumpy and mopey and show up, and I guarantee you're not going to have good results. But if you want to celebrate what's right with the world and come with that attitude, it's going to make a big difference. And then also a word of caution to be careful of those expectations. I had a woman come one year to a short weekend workshop. We have the Friday night lecture like this one, and we get to know each other. We share images, and then we get up for Saturday morning. We do a shoot Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, we're done. After the Saturday morning shoot, she comes to me and she says, I'm going home. I say, oh my, have I offended you? No. Are you okay? Do you need help? No. May I ask why you're going home? She said, well, you don't have waterfalls on the itinerary. Well, the waterfall, we can't go because there was a huge storm, and it was such a big storm, it ripped all the bridges and all the things to get across the stream and everything. It's gone. It's all roped off. We can't go. Yeah, I know. But the club has a competition, and it's got waterfalls, and so I need to go find waterfalls. What a horribly dangerous place to be. I understand the competition, and that's fine. But here we had the most beautiful foliage I've ever seen that particular year in the Poconos. And so rather than have those expectations get in the way of just showing up and receiving whatever it is that you're going to receive, she went home to go find those waterfalls. Be careful of that. And start thinking this way. Don't go where the path may lead, but go instead where there is no path and blaze your own trail with your own unique vision. See, it's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see and how you interpret it. So let's get back to this idea of dream, believe, create. I was with Liz Lawler many, many years ago. This is iteration 17 of this lecture. I change it with new thoughts or new images modify it, take things out, add new things. But at that time, I was kind of talking about this idea of dream, believe, create, and kind of getting back to this moment in time where I'm saying, if we just get back to dreaming, and then believe in our creative capability, the creative part will, and I'm going, and then all of a sudden I hear from Liz, but it's so hard. And she said it so quietly, I really didn't know if that's what she said. I said, Liz, what did you say? She says, it's so hard. I said, what's hard? And she says that second word, and she's pointing to the screen, that second word. And here's what I just blew my mind, because Liz is a PhD professor of science. She's written 5 books on science. Why on earth is she struggling to believe? She is a smart woman and a wonderful human and a dear friend. Just really, it rocked me. And so I went home that night just thinking about it and saying, what on earth, how is that possible? And I finally realized that she's absolutely right. And that became the crux of this whole conversation tonight for me. This idea that if we can get back to dreaming about what it is we want to do with our life, what do we want to do with our photography? What do we want that to be? And then if we really can believe that we can do it, the create part becomes almost automatic. That's what I've learned in my journey with photography. If I get back to getting rid of all those fears, uncertainties, and doubts and dreaming it all, and then believing, and again, pushing those things aside that I'm inviting you to push aside. This is all very autobiographical, this whole discussion tonight. It's my journey. And I think it's a lot of people's journeys who have those doubts, have fears, unsureties, all those things. But I can't to this day draw a stick figure and make it look as good as my grandkids can. So that's where my headspace was when I started this journey. I'm not creative. Even though I had written music, didn't make the connection. I'm dead serious. I didn't make the connection that I could play instruments and even write songs, but I didn't realize that was creative. I didn't make that connection with art and photography. To me, art and drawing and that type of creativity was way harder than music for whatever reason. I don't know why. So some closing thoughts here as we finish up the last 15 slides. If you start to advance confidently in the direction of those dreams that I'm talking about, and you endeavor to live a life that looks like, a photographer and what your photographs might look like, you're going to meet with success in unexpected, in common hours. It's just going to happen when you start to believe in yourself and do that. See, if you go boldly, what you can do or dream you can, just begin doing it. There's inertia that happens when we finally say, I'm going to go do this. Boldness has genius and power and magic in it. And then Covey says that you, like me, like Nancy, DeWitt, like all of Jim and Rick and all of you here tonight, you all have experiences and talents that are exclusive to you. You just need to trust that. You do. Because I do. And I didn't. Everybody does. See, great dancers aren't great because of their technique. Yeah, technique's important. And they practice like crazy to be a prima ballerina. But ultimately, it's their passion that you fall in love with. You can know all the steps. You can know all the notes, but you can't play like Stevie Ray Vaughan unless you're Stevie Ray Vaughan. Same person can try to play that same solo and it ain't going to sound like Stevie. It's because of his passion. I'm going to play a short little video clip and I'm going to talk you through it. Hear it okay, Madeline? And you can hear me okay too if I talk over it. So we've got a guy in a subway station in Washington, D.C. playing a violin. So pay attention to what the people are doing as this goes along a little bit here. maybe evaluate, is this person a good violinist? Worthy of maybe stopping? Everybody's just wandering by, they're doing their own thing. He's got a train to catch, I get it, right? Still.
Hard to hear you, John.
You can?
Barely. Hard to hear you.
Is this better now?
A little bit.
Okay. So this is Joshua Bell. Joshua Bell is a world-renowned violinist. The evening before this experiment, he was at the Library of Congress being dubbed a national treasure. People paid $1,000 a ticket. And here he is playing for free. And finally, we have a woman that stops, and let's see what she says. Says, oh, I saw you at the Library of Congress. It was fantastic. This is one of those things that really happened in Washington. Of course, Joshua says thank you. You can hear me okay now, Madeline?
Absolutely.
Good, thank you. So, obviously people had somewhere to go, something to do. I get it, right? But how often do we do the same thing and pass by those Joshua Bells? The very last quote at the end of the great movie called August Rush, it's a wonderful movie. And that young kid who can hear the music in everything, he says the music is all around us. All you have to do is listen. And so I say the images are all around us. All you have to do is be open, present, and aware that they're there. How many Joshua Bells are you walking by? I know I'll raise my hand. I do it. I really do have and pay much more attention to this. And I have a small pocketable camera that I try to carry everywhere I go. So let's finish up here. So if I haven't gotten through, let me see if I can get through really clearly about this idea of using your feelings in your work. Let me start with this. Ultimately, what I'm inviting you tonight to do is to develop your vision. And then I'd like you to think about mastering those technical aspects because they're important. But above all, what I'm really inviting you to do is engage your heart. See, connecting with those emotions and all that is what's going to make your images sing. So here I am again, early HDR time in Henryton, an abandoned institution. I'm having a party, bright, happy images, because that's how I felt making these images with 3 of my friends. And there were teddy bears there, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. It's a fun place. And then my friend Jackie sends me an email and says, do you know what happened at Henryton? And I said, I have no idea. Don't really care. She says, no, seriously, John. Just read the article. It's awful. And so I read the article and it was awful. The reason Henryton was closed down was because of the incredible abuse being perpetrated on the children who were castaway, throwaway children because of the great difficulties that they presented their families, whether it be deformities or whether it be mental health. They were just difficult. And so they were cast away into this place and sort of forgotten about. And so much so that the authorities at this prison abused them, sexually abused them to the point of death. And they would just bury them out back because nobody cared, right? Their families just didn't care. Well, guess what? My feelings changed. I now have new information that makes me really angry. Matter of fact, I have rage because I too unfortunately have an association with abuse. And so, man, my feelings are, I've got shame. How could I not see it? How could I not put the connection of those teddy bears with this place? Shame on me. And I felt shame. But again, rage. So I went back, and I've never showed these images to anybody except this image to make this point. I went back and I said, I can't present them like this. This is not now how I understand the story. This is the story. The light of truth, an array of hope being shined upon that share of an administrator who allowed this to happen to those kids. Completely different photograph. Why? Because my feelings changed. Perfectly acceptable first one, but boy, when I learned that new knowledge. So is it the same way for a landscape scene or a portrait session with somebody you love? Yes. Is it as visceral as this? No. But I'm here to tell you, it's the magic sauce. I mean, I'm very blessed to be able to do a contemplative photography retreat most every year out in the island of Molokai with DeWitt Jones and Ricky Cook, two guys who have 50 years of National Geographic experience. And to learn that this is exactly what they talk about. This is exactly what they had to learn to do, was to pay attention to the emotions of and the feelings that they were having about these places they were on assignment to photograph. And that's how they made those images that told those stories. So how do you do all this? You got to show up. You know, whether it's a 3:30 wake up call to get a sunrise, out at this pier and people are bitching at you because you got them up so early, you just got to show up. But I would say rather that you got to show up mentally, spiritually, physically. You got to show up as a human being and get up early. Because there's joy in the journey. Even if I'm not going to get a good picture of this arch because I got there at the wrong time and my stinking shadow's there, I might be standing right where Ansel was in the Alabama hills. See, I could be working when I used to have my medical sales job. I would go to Salt Lake and make sales calls, and my buddy Reggie, who happened to be a customer on the medical side and a customer on the photography workshop side, he says, why don't you go over to the old, Salt Lake, the old piers there, and have a party? And then he shows up 20 minutes later and makes a picture of me. I mean, I could be working, but nope, not me. I'm having a blast. Now I'm with Dalen, and he thinks it's a fun idea to let's take a picture of me, beating the snot out of you. I didn't think it was a great idea, but he thought it was really funny. So we did that. So here's where I want my headspace to be. When out photographing, it's with a sense of play, no bounds in sight. Anything's possible, and the unexpected welcome. And I hope after this conversation tonight that maybe you too will think about your process, the way you show up to photograph, and maybe think differently about that so that you too can show up with that sense of play. There's no bounds in sight. There's no rules tying you together. Anything's possible, and the unexpected thing that takes your breath away is welcome. So dream big, believe that you can achieve those dreams, and get out there and start creating images that are yours and uniquely yours and that make your heart sing. Thank you for attending tonight. If you want to go see what I do, my website's there. I will be sending a thank you follow-up note to Madeline. All this stuff will be in it. Again, the ebook, the notes, and then of course I hope she'll send along the email. I'll invite her to send all of that to each of you. And Madeline, you can share that with anybody in the club that you'd like to share it with. Let me get out of this so I can actually see human beings again. Hold on. There we go. I can see you again. And so, anyways, you can get the information on the email that I'll send. Hang on, let me turn up the volume here again. Go ahead, Madeline.
That's great. Thank you so much. I mean,
You're
this
welcome.
has been really wonderful, and I look forward to your email, of course. So
Good. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
I have a question. If no one else does, I'll start. How much time proportionately would you say is in camera and on the computer in post-processing?
Huh. It sort of depends on the image oftentimes, but anymore, my processing is very minimal. I've kind of gone to, I mean, Lightroom's just gotten so stinking good. And the new updates to the masking, if you haven't paid attention to that, you need to, because it's dramatically improved now. And so I would say it's way more in the field. I'd much rather be in the field making photographs. And occasionally there's going to be an image I might want to work on. So my black and white work is a very specific workflow that's much like Cole Thompson's workflow, because he and I become very good friends and we do workshops together now. And I like his dodging and burning. So that takes a little bit of extra time. So a black and white image might take me 20 minutes to a half an hour, but a lot of my color stuff takes me 3 to 5 minutes. It's very basic things that I'm doing. And I'm looking for a more traditional, more natural look in my landscape work.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Look at all these guys. We got how many women? Well, Mary, I can't see. Mary, Laura, Carol, and Madeline. It's so.
Candace, no, Candace is here, and we have a Sean. I think is Sean.
Oh, I'm missing some people, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're missing some people. So yeah.
Oh, Sean is a female.
Yeah, if she's here.
Okay. Because it's interesting. We generally have, my wife and I are very proud to say, well, we did our last 2 workshops were in Acadia. And on the second workshop, 11 people, and they were all women.
Wow.
Yep. And that's very common. We tend to have always weighted towards women versus men, which is, we're proud of that, and must say something about the environment that we create for safety for women to come along with, which I think is a good thing. Doesn't mean that you guys aren't welcome. You can come too. Any other questions?
Well, I want to thank you for doing this. My biggest issue is, like you said, the belief part. And that's my biggest challenge, feeling adequate.
Yeah.
Because I'm among some great photographers here, and I'm not really sure where I fit in.
Well, thank you for the courage in sharing that, Scott, because that's a lot to share. Scott, all I can say is I totally understand. I really do, because I can't say this I want to be as sincere as I can be. My first 8 years of photography, that's exactly how I felt. Every time I was on a workshop, I felt like I was the worst photographer there. I felt like I was copying everybody. I felt like I couldn't make a good photograph unless I looked through a good photographer's lens. But then I wasn't getting those ideas. And finally, my friend Farrell McCullough, when I went to study with Freeman Patterson in 2004, Farrell and I flew over together, and he invited me on that trip. He said, John, I'm going to ask you to do something. It's going to be hard, but I want you to do this. He says, for the next 17 days of this trip, you can't look through anybody else's viewfinder. Of course, I started sweating profusely, rings under my armpits. I mean, I just was like, there's no way in hell. I just spent all this money to go to South Africa, and you want me to make my own pictures? That ain't going to happen. But I took him up on it. And again, one of those very pivotal moments for me, because I went from looking through everybody's viewfinder to coming home for the first time, and all those images, all 96 rolls or whatever I shot on that trip, were mine. Absolutely my photographs. And when I realized by looking through them that I had some pretty good stuff in there, that belief started to kick in, Scott. And I started to realize, hey, wait a minute. I've learned from these other good photographers over these last few years. And all I needed was Farrell to say, give me that trust, that belief, and say, John, you can do this. You can. So Scott, I say to you the same thing. You can. Right. And so as I invited you earlier in this conversation, I'd like you to consider walking away from this conversation tonight, thinking about Liz Lawler, who is a smart human being and a professor and a publisher of books. And it was hard for her. It was hard for John. It was hard and I bet if you talked to this group of lovely people here, my guess is every one of them probably had a moment like you're having right now.
Often.
Somewhere. Oh, did you hear that? Often. Yeah, and I would raise my hand to the often. I can't tell you how many times I'm in a situation where I'm just feeling uncomfortable, unsure, and man, it's that self-talk I've got to go through and say, what the heck are you doing, John? It's just photography. It's not fattening. Nobody's getting hurt. This is not, John, it's not like, this is not life and death.
Right.
Just have fun. So Scott, try your best. Again, like I said, those fears, uncertainties, and doubts, all that stuff is real. You can't push it. You can't ignore it. It's real, but meet it and say, hey, not today. I ain't dealing with you today. I'm going to go have fun with Carol and Max and John at this next photo outing. And I'm just going to make images that make my heart sing. A group, here's something that you might consider as a group. So in a recent lecture I did, what they said was, John, could you come up with a project based on your presentation? Because that's what we do. Every presentation we have, we try to have a project so that we can take what we learn from that presentation and actually practically apply it, which I thought was a great idea. Right. So somebody teaches night photography and then you don't do it for a year and you forget everything. But nope, we're going to have a lesson on night photography and you're going to run out and your group is going to set up a night and you're going to go do that and you're going to apply what you've learned. I thought it was a brilliant idea. So my invitation was, I want everybody to forget all the rules, forget everything. Just go make an image that shows that this is what makes your heart sing. And I got the best email ever a few days ago. And it said, John, I just thought I would report back. We just had the sharing night and people had to share their images of what made their heart sing and tell why. And she said, you would have been blown away because people came and showed images that not necessarily their best work, some of them, but they didn't care. They were so excited that I gave them permission, like it matters, but somehow I gave them permission to be liberated enough to not worry about all that stuff I've talked about and just create, and specifically make their heart sing. And it worked. So maybe that's what you do. You say to the group, hey, everybody who's on that call with Barclay, let's go make images that make our heart sing and show them at the next presentation. It's going to be very different than making an image to win a competition. It's going to be very different than an image to make Madeline think I'm a great photographer. All those things that we do as human beings. It's human. I want people to know I'm good. That's kind of normal things, right? So thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that, Scott.
Thank you.
It's very inspiring. Very, very. It's also, it is freeing. You can feel like, okay, all that weight's off. I don't have to do that.
Amen.
So,
again, it's all autobiographical. This is what I've had to go through for me. I've felt all these feelings and still do on occasion, not near as much. And I am much better at pushing it aside and saying not today. But specifically, the blessing of working with my partner Flint Sparks for the contemplative retreat. He's a Zen priest, right? So he eats, drinks, and breathes, being centered and grounded and present and aware. That's who he is. That's his life. But being around him has had the most profound effect in my photography, or on my photography, or with whatever the right language is, because he's really helped me to slow down even more than I knew I had to. And so I don't make near as many photographs as I used to. Like I went to Acadia and in the 2 weeks that I was photographing there, I think I had 826 actuations of a shutter. If I go back to 2000, even 19, when I was pretty into this whole new philosophy or not new, but really trying to live this lifestyle of photography that I've been preaching about for so long. But even then, I bet I have 4,000. I've realized that until I'm being taken or something is taking me, I'm generally not going to do much. And I'm much more okay today with saying, you know what, I'm not feeling it. And it's okay if I walk out without an image that day, because I certainly am not going to force one to happen. It's just, it doesn't work for me anymore to make it. Let me find one. You know, that whole thing doesn't work for me anymore. But boy, if I'm walking along Jessup Path, which is this wonderful boardwalk in Acadia, you know, the last 3 images I posted on Instagram, well, maybe 3 images ago, but we're all from Jessup. So it's a horribly difficult place to photograph because you're on a boardwalk. It's dense forest. But if you slow down and you stop thinking it and just go really slow walk instead of getting to a destination, they come, they appear. Great beard, John. Do you play Santa Claus at Christmas?
I've been asked to, but the closest I've got is Santa's helper.
That's a great beard. Perfect. Perfect for that role.
Working on it, yeah.
Yeah, good. Anything else?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Lots of thanks. Lots and lots of thanks. This has been really great.
Well, I'm glad it was worth your time, I guess.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Folks, I will get an email off to Madeline tomorrow. So whenever she gets that to you, again, it'll have links that you might need. I'll mention a couple of, it'll have DeWitt Jones, Celebrate What's Right, you know, that I spoke about. Cole Thompson and Black and White Photography. I'll include his name in there and maybe a couple other photographers that I get the chance to work with and I really like, and a few other things for you. But
and your workshops, if people are interested, are on your website, I take it.
They are on the website. Let me just give you a clue. They always fill very quickly because the way I do, I come from a sales and marketing background, and I had my own sales agency in the medical device world. And so I have some knowledge of how to do it. So what I do is I ask my base of people, where do they want to go? And then I make lists. And then finally, when I got a list that, you know, says, oh, it looks like we've got enough, I schedule San Miguel and we put it out there. So if you're interested in being with us, it would be best if you got on our mailing list, and you would do that on our website, and you just get on the mailing list, and then you'll start to know. I stink at sending out newsletters, so don't worry, you're not going to get inundated. You might get 4 a year, and then you might get some odd ones. Like I just helped with a gal publish a book. I helped her do all that work, and she did a Kickstarter, very successful. And so I wanted to promote that book, and so I'll send something like that out once in a while, or Black Friday deals for companies I represent for software. But generally, I'm introducing other photographers. I have in my newsletter, I feature somebody on Instagram that I follow that I love and try to tell the world about them. I do tips and tricks of Photoshop and, Lightroom sometimes. So I try to make it a useful piece of newsletter rather than, hey, this is all about me. It's generally about, I feature music that I like and pens because I love really nice pens. It's my obsession. But anyway, stuff like that. But I do also list workshops and say, hey, we're thinking about going to these places. And generally I'll say, hey, look, I'm thinking in 2022 of going to the Smokies in the fall. Is there interest in that? And then all of a sudden, if there is, it makes it easy for me. Then I just put it up there. And generally what I do is that first group of 20 or 30 who said, yeah, put me on the notify list, they will be notified before I put it up on the website. And that's why they tend to be full before they even hit the website. I already know that I've got 20 or 30 people interested. It just automatically fills. So we'd love to have you along. If you like the style of this lecture, that's how I am in a workshop. I'm more interested in helping you achieve your vision. That's how I approach your work in the field. You'll never hear me say you should, because I think that's not my job. What I think you should do is what you want to do. And so my job is to say you might consider this or this to achieve your vision. Maybe you might consider this f-stop, or you might consider this composition, but it's never language of this is what you should do with your work. Only you know what to do with your work, not me.
Okay.
All right. So thank you, folks. And it's almost, 11:40. I'm old and it's past my bedtime.
Yeah, we'll let you go. We're still earlier than you out here.
I know, you're 3 hours ahead of me, right? Or behind me.
Depends on where you are. I don't know where you are right now.
I'm in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah, you're 3 hours later than we are. Yeah. All right, so we'll let you go to bed.
All right. Well, I hope to see you again someday. Thank you
Yep,
so much.
We'll be in touch. I look forward to seeing your
Appreciate
email and you'll hear from us. All right,
Good.
Thank
thanks,
you.
John.
Good night.
Thank
Take good
you.
care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
So we've got Saturday. Come and put all this stuff to work.
Yeah,
Come play in the Deepwood Garden and see what you can find. I walked through there yesterday and I did see some wide angle shots that are there, but you'll all see something different. Grab whatever lens you want to play with that day and come spend an hour and see what happens.
sounds good. So you're talking about 10 to 11, you're talking 10 to 11, oops, right?
That's right. 10 to 11 on Saturday, rain or shine. We'll do something.
I think it's more like rain from the prediction. We'll see. But all right. Anyone else? Rick, you want to say anything to close?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It was a great presentation, and
Yeah.
It was very different in style than the others we've had.
yeah,
I want a lens baby.
Excuse me. Oh, I didn't hear that. Somebody wants lens baby.
I want a lens baby.
Okay.
Oh,
You want it all, Laura. I know that.
I do. I do have a fisheye, and
Well, that makes, of course you would. You'd
I
have to
do,
have a
but
fish eye.
I have two different kinds of fish eyes, and I have an 8mm prime that is fun on land, but you have to be judicious with it.
Oh yeah.
You can't really, you have to use it in certain circumstances. Like, and I like his little room picture that he did. That really made me think about using that fisheye.
Yeah,
So-
that was pretty cool.
That'd be fun inside Deepwood, like inside one of those rooms. I was just thinking that'd be fun to try inside a room.
Either that or Oregon State Hospital Museum, if that's still open.
Oh, that would be weird and creepy, but that would be fun too.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Laura, there is an old abandoned bathroom on the grounds of Oregon State Hospital out near the tennis court. And I shot through the window on that building, and you can get something a lot like what he showed. It's worth checking out.
Okay.
All right.
'Cause
I gotta go. Rick.
It's sharp, so I should try it. All
I'm
right.
gonna go. I have to go. I have to take medicine and bake bread. All right. See y'all. Hopefully Saturday. Ciao.
thank you for putting it together, Madeline.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah,
I
that
can't
was
see you
great,
ending it. I don't want to end this, so you guys just keep talking. I'm just gonna leave.
All right.
End it when you do.
Um,
Bye.
somebody's got to end it.
And the madness.
Yeah.
See y'all hopefully Saturday.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Stay dry.
Okay,
Got
so
it.
what's important?
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of SpaceX, that reminds me, I read today that Elon Musk owes $15 billion in taxes.
He owes?
Yes.
Sounds about right.
I'm surprised he hasn't had more write-offs that he owes anything.
Wow.
I didn't really understand all of the explanation of how he doesn't take a salary. He takes stock options, and that's
Oh.
how he avoids taxes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of his options, if he doesn't exercise them this year, they go away.
Oh.
He has to exercise them, and at that point, he's got capital gains and some other stuff, and so he's going to wind up having to sell a bunch of his stock in order to pay.
Aw, poor guy. I feel so sorry for
That's
him.
really
Yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of his
Yeah.
Tesla stock. He on Twitter, he started a poll and asked his followers if they thought he ought to sell his Tesla stock or not. And I didn't really understand why he would ask that question or why anybody would care.
Attention seeker.
Well,
Yeah.
apparently, if he sells off 1 million shares of his stock, the stock's going to go down. because he sold.
That makes
Because it's
sense.
flooding the market with stocks that are available. Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh,
So,
Supply and demand kind of thing, I guess.
all that, and if the guy who started the company is selling his stock, you wonder,
Yeah.
is he jumping ship or something? What's happening?
Yeah, what does he know behind the scenes?
What does he know about?
Insider trading is right.
What does he know about the new energy laws and or whatever that deal is they've been working on? So
I was listening to someone named Harari, who is an Israeli historian who has become somewhat of a futurist as well, and talking about how do you teach ethics to self-driving cars. So if the car has a choice of hitting one thing or another, you know, these are all ethics questions that we deal with as humans. How does a car make that decision? And how do you get consciousness into artificial intelligence? Talk about future and Tesla and going on with that. Yeah. Not an answer.
not a problem with the self-driving car hitting anything.
Well, right. If it has to, if a kid runs into the road and you've got other people crossing or your passenger is at risk, do you hit the kid? Do you just keep going? Do you, things happen. It's not that, people don't want to hit things either, but they sometimes can't avoid it. So
Scenario that I read was,
if it's somebody on a cell phone talking away while they're plowing through a crowd, they're not exercising any real intelligence either. So it's not a whole lot different.
Yeah.
the scenario I read was that somebody is going to die in a self-driving car. And the meme with it was, "Hey kids, grandma's here. Yay, grandma." Kids go running out and there's grandma in the self-driving car dead.
it's pretty scary. Oh, I see what you mean. That somebody would just die of natural causes, not
Yeah.
die or dying
Yeah.
in the car.
Well,
right.
people do die of heart attacks while they're driving.
Yeah.
Well, better than the self-driving car drive.
Yeah.
Then that car's out of control if the person is dead behind the wheel. Yeah, all sorts of ethical issues come up, don't they?
Yep.
Then you have to worry about them getting hacked also.
About
Yeah.
them getting what?
Hacked.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's true with any car, I think, at this point. We're so computerized. Hi, Max.
Hello there.
Howdy.
Hello.
Someone asked a question about Saturday's event on when that would be.
Yeah, what time?
It's 10 o'clock.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought
okay.
on web, somewhere I saw 11, so I just wanted to confirm that. I'm gonna go check my mail and see if there's anything from John Barclay, because I thought he would be with us by now. So I'm gonna.
Does someone have a TV or radio on in the background?
Yeah. My wife was watching the news.
Oh,
Apparently the microphone is picking it up.
sorry.
Let's see. I'll disappear for a while and I'll come back on my phone. I'll go in the other room.
Okay, there are no emails from John. My phone hasn't rung. Let me go make sure I have my phones handy in case something happens.
So Max, how much RAM do you have in your computer?
128.
Good grief.
And-
You just said you got 64 or 60,
64. Yeah.
54.
64 may be a smarter investment. I can exceed 64 when I have a large stack that I'm doing in Photoshop, but that's on rare occasions. I think 64 is probably what most people are going to want if they're doing serious Photoshop work. You can get by with 32, but I don't see how you could really do much with less.
I've got 12. I do fight it, of course.
Yeah, it makes it pretty slow because it would be going back and forth to a swap file.
Yeah, I'm going to have to fix that. So I just hate to do it when my computer is running great, but it's still got, it's still 5 years old. So I think it's time to upgrade. So,
My problem with mine was 6 years old, and the battery was failing. But a new battery cost me about as much as the computer was worth. So I just figured they've come out with so many new technological advances in the last 6 years. I figured I'd go ahead and bite the bullet. And that's my anniversary and Christmas and birthday presents for the next 2 years. So.
You're going to have to be good for a long time. I'd hate to think I was backed up for 2 years.
well,
Okay.
Have you found our presenter yet?
Nope, I haven't. I have his phone number with me. So if he's not here in a few minutes, I'll give him a call.
Okay. He might have forgot to turn his clock back.
He might have forgotten that tonight's the presentation.
That's true.
maybe you better call him now.
Well, I was going to wait till 7. It's not quite 7. Because I did tell him the meeting start at 7. I said we open the doors at 6:30 and the meeting starts at 7.
Oh.
So, yeah. He said he would like to come early just to say hello to everyone, but something came up. I'd still wait till 7 here.
When was the last time you talked to him?
A few days ago.
Oh, well, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's not like we haven't been in touch in months.
Okay.
And I did send him the Zoom link, and he has my phone number.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
So we should be set. And as I said, I just looked up his phone number again, and if we don't hear from him in a few minutes, we'll just give him a call, and we can entertain ourselves in the meantime. Hi, David. I don't know you, but hello to David. Hi, Mary.
Hello.
Pretty backgrounds.
What are the purple lines, David, on the top of your picture there?
This is actually, and I can't remember the bridge, but one of the bridges in Portland that I took at night.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, there's some beautiful colors at night in Portland.
I thought that was the UFO coming in to beam you up.
Just come to take me away. I would do my best if it was a UFO. I'd do my best not to have a blurry picture.
Well, that's the hallmark of UFO pictures. They're all blurry.
I'd be the first one to take a sharp picture, hopefully.
That's right.
You'd be the poster child of McMinnville.
Yeah.
They wouldn't think it was authentic if it wasn't blurry.
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
Is that a UFO or is that Bigfoot? Not quite sure.
Or the
Yeah.
Loch Ness Monster. Don't forget, Nessie.
Mhm.
And here we go. No, we've got John, Carol.
I like John's laying on his side there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Come on, John. Set
Carol
up
is
straight.
the queen of composites, of supernatural or surreal composites. All right, I'm going to excuse myself and give him a call.
Okay.
Do I appear sideways to
You
everybody?
You-
I do. You're all sideways to me.
yeah.
All right.
Hey,
Let me.
it's not us, John. It's you.
I know. Let me. I
Hey,
was trying not to
There you
have to
go.
hold my phone the whole time. So.
Hmm. I'm not sure why it can't go sideways, but
Yeah, most of the time you flip your phone, it self corrects, but this one doesn't.
Carol's going around in circles.
Whee!
Oh,
Go get my tripod out of the car.
Probably a little bit of time.
Yeah.
well, 7:02. I guess we can go ahead and kind of officially start while Madeline's making her phone call. I don't think we have much going on, actually. Max, you got your
Yeah, I want to plug
Coming
the
up.
shoot on Saturday at 10 o'clock down to Deepwood. And I'm also going to host a Q&A for Lightroom and Photoshop on December 3rd. It's come and join and share your screen, and we'll just kind of work through this stuff together and see what interests people have and what problems they want help to solve, and just kind of see if we can make things work together.
Okay.
John will be here in a few minutes. Something's come up and he'll be a few minutes late, but he is on his way.
okay.
That's good.
And I think we're out of announcements. Anybody else got anything that coming up? Any suggestions?
I think we need a workshop on how to shoot pictures of rain. How's that? Because that's the best thing that's going to happen the next couple days.
Yep. Gonna get a lot of it.
In fact, Max has got rain behind him there coming out of the rocks there, something. That's what
Yeah,
it's all going to look like here pretty soon.
I might want to run back up to the falls. They're going to have a lot more water now.
That's true.
I kind of need to stop taking pictures for a while because I'm way behind on working my pictures. So I could be set for most of the winter with the stuff I've got on my good intentions disc.
Yeah.
Good intentions disc. I like that.
Does anyone get prints made at PhotoVision? Ever?
I did a long time ago.
Yeah, they
But
used to be our sponsor. We used to meet in their lobby, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I need to print a big print, and I tried to do it someplace, and it was going to be shipped, and it was going to take 2 weeks, longer than I needed. So then I drove to PhotoVision. Of course, they're closed. You can't go into the building.
Yeah.
So that means I got to come back home and get online and talk to them, and I haven't done that yet. So
Focal Point can do large prints.
I'm hoping that but do they do it there, or they ship
Yeah,
them?
They do it there.
Are they as good as PhotoVision? Probably not.
I think so. I've got a photo hanging up on the wall that they printed for me. I don't know what size it is. I measured my mantle and then figured out how the photo would look best.
Yeah, this is just going to be 20 by 30. I'm thinking they probably could do it just in a day or something at PhotoVision. I don't know. Know. Good.
I'm not sure. PhotoVision is doing a lot of film work now, and
okay.
Crap, what's his name?
Oh, there's John. Looks like we're ready to start, guys. So, okay.
Mute yourself and you're here.
Yeah, I should be there. And then, hello,
Oh,
folks.
you were
Oh.
here. There you
All
are. Okay, I can hang up
I'm
the
here. Let me just get one other thing set up, folks. Sorry, we had
All
some
right.
family issues tonight, but we're good now. I just want to make sure to get
right.
one thing set up so that when we switch over here, it'll switch over handily. Thanks for coming out tonight, folks. I'm sorry to keep you for a few extra minutes. If I'm panting, it's because I'm out of breath. You guys can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, excellent.
Oh, we sure can. Is that your guitar on the wall?
That is one of my, let me see, how many do I have? 5, one of my 5 guitars.
Oh, wow. That looks like a nice one.
That's okay. That's an Anui. Right to the bottom is a custom built guitar, which is my absolute favorite. Okay, hang on here. Let me just go back to here, cancel out of that, go to here, open recent. Here we go. Just want to make sure I have this set up properly so that we can do the right program. I don't want to do the wrong program tonight.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
Oh, we
All right.
haven't seen any of them, so you can't go too far wrong.
That's right.
What?
You can always play the guitar too.
Well, I could do that. Just because I have 5 guitars doesn't mean I'm actually any good at them.
That's the same with, I've got 5 cameras. That doesn't mean I can take pictures, right?
That's right. And
I
just
was-
because,
Yeah,
just
I was
because
saying
you have
earlier that I couldn't do the photos I wanted to do today, so I wound up baking bread instead. It's like forget photography for a
I'd like to have the bread. That sounds really good.
hopefully.
Good. Well, thank you. Let me go ahead and turn the back to you. I don't know if you have business to conduct or introductions or anything like that.
Rick, you're
I
on.
think we've done our business. I would like to ask you one question before we start, John.
Okay.
Do you want us to hold questions to the end of your presentation, or do you want to stop and ask for questions periodically? Yeah, this is your show, so we'll do whatever you want to do.
Thank you for asking that question. I appreciate it. I would much prefer to have questions at the end of this particular presentation. This is one that I have a flow and a cadence that I'd like to keep, but I'm happy to stay around for any questions that you might have. So no problem doing that.
Okay, that's what we'll do then. If anyone has a question, please put it in the chat. When we start, we need to mute everybody so nobody interrupts. And I'm just going to ask everybody to mute themselves so I don't have to mute everybody.
Yeah, and John is already a co-host, so you can share your screen and
Good.
Okay.
Well, let
Rick
me
is
start off
recording.
before I share the screen so that I can see most of you except for Mary and Sean, who don't want to show me their faces. But that's okay. I'd rather not show my face either, but I have to. So first and foremost, thank you to Madeline and Rick for inviting me.